Florida yesterday making news. Republican Governor Rick Scott signing a bill from the legislature granting in-state tuition at Florida colleges for illegals. Here to talk about that and all things Florida, Javier Manjarres from the Shark Tank blog that you find at shark-tank.com. That's where I find that. And our good friend from Newsmax, who we find at Newsmax.com and here on Newsmax TV, Senior Editor David Patten. Gents, we welcome you into America's Forum, and we really appreciate you coming in today. Florida, for the first time, allowing undocumented students, using the style book of the AP, using students who came here illegally to pay in-state college rates under the wide-ranging tuition bill. To qualify, these students must have attended at least 3 years of high school in Florida, have a high school diploma. The bill will become state law January 1st. David, we'll start with you. You were here last time. We talked about this a little bit. Your take on what's happening.
Well, first of all, I'd note that this is happening within the context of this huge immigration crisis with the children coming across the Rio Grande right now. Maybe as many as 90,000 coming across the border by year's end. Almost as many as in the Mario boat lift of 1980. It was around 125, 120,000. We're looking at a huge crisis in the country, and you have to wonder how much the benefits given might be a draw to people. Of course, there's violence, but also are they coming here for other reasons? But I think, you really have to go beyond that a little bit. You have to look at the reality for Florida. You do have a gubernatorial election coming up. And you also have students who are being educated at public expense, and then all of a sudden they get to college. If they don't go to Florida schools, then they're going to go to Alabama, Mississippi. Do you really want to be exporting people you've really already paid to educate? That's the question.
Javier, at sharktank.com, it's interesting politically for Rick Scott because David mentions the upcoming election. You take a look at the statement the government issued yesterday, and I think we have it here full screen. Students that grew up in our state are going to get the same in-state tuition as their peers, which is what's fair. But back in 2011, Governor Scott told Newsmax, and let's quote now, "With regard to in-state tuition for illegal immigrants, I completely oppose it." Javier, does this anger conservatives in Florida enough to keep them from pulling the lever for Rick Scott?
No, I don't think so, because who's he facing? He's facing Republican turned independent turned Democrat Charlie Crist. We don't trust him. Now, they have an issue with Rick Scott regarding immigration reform. Obviously, he flip-flopped on this. I think we can all agree.
Sure.
And this is only being done because of it being a political season and because he's down in the polls. If Rick Scott was up in the polls, we wouldn't have this bill come up and he wouldn't have signed it.
I don't know if I agree with you there, Javier, because I think we've actually reached a tipping point in the state of Florida, and David mentioned that. There's enough public sentiment where you have enough folks who have been in schools for a long period of time, and those folks, even though they are not authorized, they're illegal or undocumented, however you want to classify it, they're coming out of the shadows now and speaking on their own behalf here. And Rick Scott, we heard Richard Viguerie mention as a potential presidential candidate someday. What he's doing here I actually think is very smart by not just tying in the immigration here issue, but he's also expanding it beyond trying to make college more affordable for all Americans. So he's also opening the door, sending out this message of inclusiveness, which, as you mentioned, he needs to do to get those poll numbers
Right,
up.
but again, this would not be happening this year, maybe next year. Maybe last year, if his polls are up, he was up in the polls. This is purely for political reasons. And again, it is what it is. Look, we have to address all these kids that are here at no fault of their own. A lot of them are. Look, I'm against illegal comprehensive immigration reform, but what are we going to do with these kids? If I was 2 years old and I was brought here illegally and I found out at age 18 I was an illegal citizen, illegal alien because my parents brought me, I had no idea. We have to find a solution for that, but again, this is strictly political.
Well, a different group of kids. David touched on this earlier, and Javier at Shark Tank, you talk about it too. The thousands upon thousands of unaccompanied children who we hear they're from Central America, yet they show up on our southern border with Mexico. In your blog at Shark Tank, the entry from June 9th, you talk about this, wondering how this all came to pass.
Listen, again, how tens of thousands of children under the age of 15, 16, whatever, they all of a sudden appear on the southern border from Central America, El Salvador, Honduras, wherever. I don't think they were following the North Star here. I don't think they had a compass with them to make it all the way, trek thousands of miles from their native countries to the U.S. border. I think that they were wholeheartedly, it was facilitated by the Central American government, including Mexico, and I would not be surprised if Obama was involved here. Why it would benefit Obama. This is, with all the scandals going on, why wouldn't he facilitate or strike we know him to strike deals behind closed doors. Why wouldn't he say, listen, Mexico, let's help each other out? After Nieto, the president of Mexico, is in cahoots and is in complete compliance or in support of Obama's immigration reform policy. Why wouldn't, is it too much to think that Obama would conjure something like this? Maybe, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the thought comes to mind.
Well, not so much conspiracy, but complicity, David Patten. You heard what Javier had to say. Do you think the administration played an active role? I mean, we saw with Fast and Furious, the president put down that curtain of executive privilege to protect his attorney general, Eric Holder. Is it conceivable we could see this kind of complicity here?
It seems to me that the president and Democrats are going to benefit through immigration reform if they can make a deal with Republicans. That would be a huge legacy for President Obama. He would love to do that. I think that this flood of unaccompanied children, which is going to be a huge humanitarian crisis. Imagine 90,000 unaccompanied kids. Right now, they're sleeping on military bases on mattresses and being fed, fast food and burritos that are making them sick. I think this is an opportunity for Republicans to exercise maybe the better angels of their political nature. Make a distinction between these children who didn't make the decision to come across the Rio Grande, and the fact that our borders are unbelievably porous. What I'd like to know is we've spent $130 billion on our borders in the past 9 years. And what have we got to show for it? Thousands, tens of thousands of kids since October can march right across the border.
As I heard your scenario, and I understand the challenge of kids who are brought here, quote, through no fault of their own. But under existing law, with family reunification. See, it's a situation where there's going to be spotty enforcement of existing law because it's not going on here, but suddenly when the kids come across, hey, the families have to be reunited. And to get the kind of changes necessary it really goes back to Ted Kennedy's immigration bill from the mid-60s. To get the changes needed legislatively is doubtful, but to get the judicial adventurism or perhaps new law created for political necessity by the left, I think you're going to see that with the Equal Protection Clause.
Yeah, but these kids, is that what they're saying, that they're here? They're here at the border to be reunited with their families here. So who was watching them back in Mexico or Venezuela, wherever they came from? Who was watching them then? Were they living on the streets? They somehow again made it to the border, and they know where their family is. I don't buy it. I mean,
well, these are extended families, so a lot of them coming across, and the consensus is from the officials that are in charge of this that in fact most of them are coming here to the U.S. because they have a family here, but extended family, aunts, uncles, other relatives, and so that's why they're coming here. Let's not forget that there's a tremendous gang violence problem right now in these countries. We may look down our noses at that, but some of these kids face a choice. You either leave town or you join the gang. Right. And in Honduras, for example, it has the highest murder rate in the world of any country that's not at war. So the aspect of a crisis made by the Obama administration, perhaps, but it's also reality. There is that terrible violence there.
All right, well, gentlemen, we got one last minute for our last topic here, a little more than that, but we want to keep it to that if we can. Marco Rubio here. We're talking about the VA Healthcare Center. This is something he's been working on for a long time, snooping around VA medical centers in Florida. He was out front there on the Republican version of this bill, and then Bernie Sanders and John McCain worked on a compromise here. Did Rubio get shortchanged, Javier?
Well, Marco put that out in January, his bill, and no one would support it but Republicans. I was fortunate enough to get Senator Bill Nelson on record saying he would support it, and he finally followed through with that. Democrat Senator Bill Nelson. Now, Bernie Sanders squashed it in the Senate. We all saw that. McCain turned around and struck the deal with Sanders and the rest of the Democrats. Again, what comes out of, at least something positive is going to come out of this, better than what we had in place. I think we can't point our finger. We just got to support it and see what comes of it.
The interesting thing on the House side, Jeff Miller carrying basically the identical bill in the House. Republicans with a majority there get that passed. But the interesting thing to me, David, is the nighttime hearings where Congress comes back into session. Jeff Miller calls the VA hearings right there. It obviously is the only, quote, hearing going on, but does that underscore the fact that even with the systematic problems of the VA, a lot of the media on a day-by-day basis would not focus the attention, so he went to the not ready for prime time here? Or check that in terms of a prime time schedule at 9 o'clock Eastern time during the evening hours?
You know, it's interesting, both the VA crisis and this immigration crisis we're talking about, neither of these is going away anytime soon. These are going to be problems that Republicans want to highlight. We have an election coming up in November. The number one factor determining the outcome, how popular or unpopular is President Obama. Look for them to press these issues at every opportunity.
Well, Jeff Miller is a ready for primetime player. There is talk now that with his stewardship of the Veterans Affairs Committee, that Speaker Boehner may be looking to install Jeff Miller as the next chairman of the Select Committee on Intelligence.
Well, it's a great move for Congressman Boehner. Look, he's got his own issues in the House. I mean, he's got a broken House. They're looking to. I spoke to several congressmen who are looking to oust him next year. So it'd be a smart political move for him to install Miller, who's a very strong conservative and very respected up in the House.
You know what? Sitting on this side of Congress now, we got a lot of stories to talk about. Javier Manjarres and Dave Patten, we thank you very much for your time and your insights. Obviously, there is more to talk about, and of course, we want to get your opinion on what we discussed. In-state tuition in Florida for illegals. Do you like that idea? And what's going on at the border? Tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum.